In this screencast, I just want to introduce some new features in the linked data testing that I'm doing for ocean leadership. Talking a little bit about resource exchange and vocabulary publishing. So the real focus of this screencast are on 2 points. One is keys. In many ways, when we're looking at a linked data system, especially that we might implement in ocean leadership, we're looking at some of the types of keys, very analogous to primary keys in relational databases, that we might use to associate primary data, resource data concepts, and things across the various IOs. And one, of course, the obvious keys is the leg site hole location representation, and we'll be talking about that in this. Obviously, this is not the only key. Taxon, timescales, lithology concepts, other things like this become keys as well. But this just shows a basic example of implementing these types of keys in an exchange type environment. And the others, of course, then vocabularies to describe what are the parameters within these keys. So let's just take a quick look at this. So what I've set up on the oceandrilling.org domain is a codicesv LSH leg site hole key. So an example of this then would simply be something along this line, to where we've actually looked then at leg 209, site 1275, hole B. Right? And it's as we expect, we're just seeing the breakdown of the core counts, water depths, percent recovery, elements like this. 2 things to note here. One is, if you look at the URL closely, you'll notice it's a codices drill site. That's because the codices LSH 209 1275B is a dereferenced URI that's through or through redirected to this location following linked data patterns. The other thing is that we actually then break out what the vocabulary namespaces are in this case. And another thing we do is we actually structure an SQL statement using then this key, this exact URI key, and hit the Sparkle endpoint that has been discussed in previous screencasts. In that case, then what we return is a set of resources associated with it. So that particular Sparkle request says simply, give me all resource URIs, or all resources, give me the URIs of all resources that are, in this case, related to this particular resource. So let's talk about the vocabulary real quick. If we hit the vocabulary and look at it, basically what we're following is the W3C best practices for vocabulary publishing, and returning the RDF. Then in this case, I'm using a plugin for Firefox that allows me to kind of navigate through the RDF, looking at various representations of it, so we can actually see it. In this case, it's a very simple initial vocabulary, just kind of working out the pipeline, but we've got water depth, core count, core recovery. Obviously, the definition of these terms would need to be done by the domain scientist in that regard. The other thing we do then is we actually link then out to the resources that are associated with this. And in keeping with the linked data pattern, of course, all these resources have an RDF representation, so they're content negotiated in that regard. And in fact, this particular resource, for example, could be requested as an image and actually show then, in this case, the core image scan that was done here. So we get some basic data associated with this resource, and we also get associated data with it. And of course, this resource can also be represented then in its RDF form as well. The extension negotiation is a bit of a hack, utilizing that within the Grails framework. Of course, this URI could directly be requested as RDF XML with that URI without modifying the ending of it whatsoever. So, just very quick introduction there, talking about the utilization of the keys, the fact that we're 303, content negotiated, and that we can actually then do a little bit of value added, where we can quick look for resources that we know about a priori that are associated with this particular resource URI. We have a vocabulary that is then in RDF that we can hit. We 303 from that one as well, so we're using the best practices for slash-based vocabularies. So, just a really quick introduction. This image is available, but it shows some of the initial resource URIs that are being put forth in this test, and also some others in gray that are hopefully soon to come. As these fill out, and as we fill out the vocabularies, then we'll be able to do more powerful demonstrations of what we can do with this type of environment for the USIO's notional leadership.